years ago. 10 years. That's how long Aaliyah Miller Park had believed the past was finally buried. 10 years since Ji-sung's trial. 10 years of building the MedAccess Foundation into an international force for pharmaceutical justice. 10 years of watching their daughter Jia grow from a baby into a brilliant, headstrong 15-year-old who had her father's intensity and her mother's refusal to back down. 10 years of almost forgetting that some debts never expire. Until the morning Jia didn't come home from school. Until Aaliyah found the note in her daughter's bedroom, written in Korean characters she'd learned to read fluently over the past decade. Your father's sins are now your daughter's burden. You have 72 hours. Until she realized that the beautiful, legitimate life they'd built was constructed on a foundation that someone, somewhere, wanted to see crumble. Because the thing about the past, it doesn't stay buried when you've hurt the wrong people. And Park Ji-sung, reformed advocate and devoted father, had hurt a lot of people on his way to redemption. Before we dive into the most intense chapter of this story, I need you to do something. If you've been following Aaliyah and Ji-sung's journey from that chaotic first meeting in the hospital to their wedding and beyond, hit that like button. Drop a comment telling me, would you sacrifice everything to save your child, even if it meant becoming the monster you'd spent years trying to leave behind? Because that's exactly the choice Ji-sung and Aaliyah are about to face. And if you haven't watched part 1 and part 2 of this series, go back and watch them now. You need to understand how they got here. How a nurse running from harassment became the wife of Korea's most dangerous reformed criminal. How love survived prison and paralysis and impossible odds to fully appreciate what they're about to lose. Subscribe to Love and Tension, because this final chapter is going to test everything you thought you knew about justice, redemption, and how far parents will go to protect their children. Trust me, you don't want to miss what happens next. The call came at 3:47 p.m. on a Tuesday in October. Aaliyah was in her office at MedAccess Foundation's international headquarters, a gleaming 15-story building in Gangnam that represented everything she and Ji-sung had built over the past decade. She was reviewing a proposal for expanding their pharmaceutical equity program into Southeast Asia when her phone buzzed with a number she didn't recognize. She almost didn't answer, almost let it go to voicemail like she did with most unknown numbers these days, but something, intuition, maternal instinct, whatever you wanted to call it, made her swipe to accept. Hello? Silence. Then breathing. Heavy. Deliberate. Mrs. Park. A man's voice. Korean accent, speaking English. We have your daughter. The world tilted. Aaliyah gripped her desk, her other hand flying to her mouth. What? Who is this? Where's... Jia is safe for now. The voice was calm, almost pleasant. She'll remain safe if you follow instructions exactly. You have 72 hours to deliver what we want. What do you want? Money? I can get you money. Just don't hurt her. Please don't. We don't want money, Mrs. Park. We want justice. Real justice. The kind your husband's expensive lawyers protected him from 10 years ago. Aaliyah's blood ran cold. Ji-sung's past. Always his past, reaching forward like grasping hands. Listen to me very carefully, she said, her nurse's training kicking in. Stay calm in crisis, assess the situation, find the solution. Whatever my husband did before we met, before he went to prison, before he changed, I had nothing to do with it. My daughter had nothing to do with it. She's 15 years old. She's innocent. No one is innocent when they benefit from blood money. The man's voice hardened. Your foundation, your mansion, your perfect life, all of it built on the suffering Park Ji-sung caused. All those people he hurt on his way to becoming a respected advocate. The words dripped with contempt. Did he tell you about the families destroyed by his organization? The people who died because his smuggled medications were contaminated. The lives ruined when he eliminated his competition. He saved lives too, Aaliyah shot back. The medications he distributed. Spare me the Robin Hood narrative. We know the truth. We've always known. A pause. 72 hours, Mrs. Park. You'll receive instructions. If you contact the police, if you tell anyone except your husband, if you deviate from our directions in any way, you'll never see Jia again. We'll send her back to you in pieces. The line went dead. Aaliyah sat frozen, phone still pressed to her ear, the threat echoing in her mind. Then training gave way to terror and she was running. Out of her office, past startled colleagues, down 15 floors because waiting for the elevator felt impossible. Out into Seoul's October afternoon where the air was crisp and normal people were living normal lives while hers was imploding. She called Ji-sung. He answered on the first ring. Aaliyah? What's wrong? Where are you? Her voice cracked. At the Foundation's Busan office. I'm about to present to... Baby, what happened? You sound... Someone took Jia. The words came out as a sob. Someone has our daughter. Silence on the other end. Then Ji-sung's voice, deadly calm. I'm getting on a helicopter now. I'll be there in 40 minutes. Where are you? Outside headquarters. I'm going to the school. I need to... No, go home. Now. Taewon is 3 minutes away. He'll bring you to the house. I'll meet you there. He paused. Aaliyah, listen to me. Jia is going to be fine, I promise you. She's going to be fine. It was the same voice he'd used 10 years ago when promising her they'd survive his trial. The same certainty, the same steel. But this time, Aaliyah heard something else underneath. Fear. Park Ji-sung, the man who'd faced down prosecutors in organized crime and his own paralysis without flinching, was afraid. Because this time, it wasn't his life on the line. It was their daughter's. Taewon arrived in a black SUV. Older now, but still intimidating. Still carrying that quiet menace that made people step aside. He'd stayed with them through everything. The trial, the reformation, the foundation's growth. Now in his 50s, he'd become more family than employee. A surrogate uncle to Jia who'd taught her self-defense and Korean curse words when he thought her parents weren't listening. Mrs. Park. He opened the door for her, his face grim. Mr. Park called. Told me everything. Did he tell you not to let me go to the school? Aaliyah asked as she climbed in. Yes. I'm going anyway. Taewon studied her for a moment, then nodded. I'll drive, but we do it my way. No running and screaming. We observe first. See if anyone's watching. The school, Seoul International Academy, where Jia was in 10th grade, looked normal from the outside. Students in uniform walking in groups, some waiting for parent pickups, others heading to the subway. Aaliyah scanned every face, looking for her daughter's distinctive braids, her confident walk. Anything. Not there. Taewon pointed to a group of girls near the front gate. Her friends. Aaliyah was out of the car before he'd fully stopped, running across the street, not caring about traffic or protocols or anything except getting answers. Mrs. Park! One of the girls, Sarah, Jia's best friend, saw her first. Is everything okay? Is Jia sick? What do you mean? Aaliyah grabbed Sarah's shoulders, trying to gentle her grip when the girl flinched. Where's Jia? Wasn't she in school today? She left at lunch, said her grandmother called that there was a family emergency. Sarah's eyes widened. Wait, you didn't know? Oh my God, was it a trick? Mrs. Park, what's happening? Did you see who she left with? A driver. Not your usual one. I've seen Uncle Taewon before. This was someone else. Older Korean man in a suit. Jia seemed fine though. She was laughing when she got in the car. She said she'd text me later, but Sarah pulled out her phone. She never did. And her phone's going straight to voicemail now. Aaliyah felt Taewon's hand on her shoulder, steadying her. Thank you, Sarah. If Jia contacts you, tell her to call home immediately. It's very important. Back in the car, Aaliyah's mind raced. They came for her at lunch, pretended to be from the family. She went willingly because she thought, her voice broke. She thought it was safe. We'll review school security footage, Taewon said, already driving back toward the mansion. Get the license plate, vehicle description. Mr. Park will know what to do. Will he? Aaliyah turned to look at him. Taewon, who would do this? Who from Ji-sung's past has enough hatred to kidnap a child? Taewon's jaw tightened. Many people. Mr. Park did what he had to do to survive in that world, but survival meant making enemies, permanent enemies. He changed. He's been clean for a decade, completely legitimate. Doesn't that count for something? Not to the families of the people he killed, not to the organizations he destroyed. Taewon glanced at her. I'm sorry, Mrs. Park. I know this isn't what you want to hear, but you asked for truth. They drove in silence the rest of the way. Aaliyah staring out the window at Seoul passing by. This city that had been her home for 12 years now, where she'd learned the language and the culture, where she'd built a life and a family, where her daughter had been born and raised, but safe and loved and completely unaware that her father's past could reach out and take her. The mansion looked the same as always, beautiful, secure, completely unchanged from the morning when Aaliyah had kissed Jia goodbye and told her to have a good day at school and reminded her about her chemistry test next week and all the normal mundane things mothers say to daughters who they assume will come home. Mrs. Bayek met them at the door, tears streaming down her face. She'd been with them since the beginning, had helped raise Jia from infancy. Now she was 72 and devastated. Any contact? Aaliyah asked. Mrs. Bayek shook her head, speaking in Korean. Taewon translated even though Aaliyah understood perfectly now. Nothing. No calls to the house, no messages. The school called, asking why Jia didn't return for afternoon classes. And I told them she was sick. I didn't know what else to say. Aaliyah pulled the older woman into a hug. You did right. Thank you. Then she heard it. The unmistakable sound of helicopter rotors. She ran to the garden just as Ji-sung's private helicopter touched down on the landing pad he'd had installed 5 years ago when the Foundation's work required constant travel. He emerged before the rotors had fully stopped, moving with the careful speed of someone whose legs didn't always cooperate, but whose determination overrode physical limitations. His cane, elegant black carbon fiber that he'd designed himself, clicked against the stone pathway. Their eyes met across the garden. And then, she was in his arms, and he was holding her so tightly she couldn't breathe, and it didn't matter because breathing felt impossible anyway. "I've got you," he murmured into her hair. "I've got you. We're going to fix this." "How?" Aaliyah pulled back to look at him. His face was pale, jaw clenched, eyes hard with the kind of cold calculation she hadn't seen in years. "Ji-sung, how are we going to fix this when we don't even know who took her?" "We will. Come inside. I've already made calls." The dining room had been transformed into a command center, laptops open, phones charging, security monitors displaying feeds from the school and surrounding areas. Dr. Chen was there, still their partner at the foundation, now in her mid-60s but sharp as ever. Ryu, one of Ji-sung's old lieutenants who'd gone legitimate running a security firm. Even Officer Kim, Ji-sung's probation officer from a decade ago who'd become something like a friend over the years. "Everyone's on their way," Ji-sung said, guiding Aaliyah to a chair. "We're going to find her. But first, I need you to tell me everything, the call, exact words." Aaliyah recounted it all, forcing herself to remember every detail. Ji-sung listened without interrupting, his expression growing darker with each sentence. When she finished, he was quiet for a long moment. Then, "This isn't random. They knew too much. About the trial, about my past operations, about the contaminated medication incident." "What contaminated medication incident?" Aaliyah's blood went cold. "Ji-sung, what are they talking about?" He looked at her, and she saw the weight of secrets in his eyes. "There was a shipment, early in my operation, before I had proper quality control systems. Antibiotics from an Indian manufacturer that I didn't properly vet. 3 people died from bacterial contamination before I could pull the batch and destroy it." "3 people died?" Aaliyah's voice rose. "You never told me that. In 12 years, you never—" "Because I was ashamed." Ji-sung's voice was raw. "Because it was my biggest failure. The thing that made me realize I couldn't just move product without proper testing and verification. It's why I eventually set up the lab protocols, why I became obsessive about quality control. But yes, 3 people died because of my negligence. And I never faced charges for it because the authorities didn't know. I covered it up." "Oh my God." Aaliyah stood, pacing. "Who knew about this?" "Only my inner circle at the time. Taiwan, Ryu, a few others." He glanced at Ryu. "How many are still alive?" Ryu pulled up something on his laptop. "Of the 12 people who knew about the contaminated batch, 8 are dead. 2 are in prison for unrelated crimes. 1 is in witness protection. That leaves Min-jae." Ji-sung's face went rigid. "Choi Min-jae." "Who's Choi Min-jae?" Aaliyah demanded. "My former logistics coordinator. Handled shipping routes, customs bribes, all the technical details of moving product across borders." Ji-sung stood, moving to the windows overlooking the garden. "He was loyal for years. Then the trial happened and he disappeared. I assumed he'd taken his payout and left the country." "Maybe he did," Taewon said. "But maybe he came back." Ji-sung's phone buzzed, unknown number. He held it up so everyone could see, then answered on speaker. "Park Ji-sung," the same voice from Aaliyah's call. "I trust your wife told you about our conversation." "Where's my daughter?" Ji-sung's voice was deadly calm. "Safe, for now. Did you tell the police?" "No." "Smart, because we have people watching. If we see police involvement, if we detect any surveillance, if you try to find us, Jia dies. Understood?" "Understood. What do you want?" "Justice." The word came out sharp. "Real consequences for what you did. You killed 17 people during your criminal career. Park Ji-sung. 17 confirmed deaths. Possibly more. You poisoned 3 with your contaminated medications. You destroyed families, ruined lives, spread violence and corruption through this city for years. And what happened? A suspended sentence, community service, a fine you paid with money made from crime. I served my time, I changed my life. I've spent 10 years trying to make amends." "Amends?" The voice laughed bitterly. "You think running a charity absolves you of murder? You think saving lives now erases the lives you took? My brother was one of those 17. My nephew was one of the 3 poisoned by your contaminated antibiotics. You took my family, and you got to keep yours. That ends now." Aaliyah's hand flew to her mouth. This wasn't about money or revenge in the traditional sense. This was about something deeper, more primal, a father's grief, a brother's rage, all focused on their daughter. "Min-jae," Ji-sung said quietly. "It's you." Silence. Then, "You remember? Good. You should remember the people you destroyed." "I do remember. I remember your brother. He was working for Young's organization. He came at me with a knife during the territorial dispute over Itaewon. It was self-defense. He was 23 years old. The voice cracked with emotion. A kid playing gangster who didn't deserve to die in an alley like a dog. And my nephew, 8 years old, Ji-sung, 8. His mother couldn't afford the expensive antibiotics from the hospital, so she bought from you. Your cheap medicine, your contaminated poison. He died screaming in pain while bacteria ate through his intestines. The room was silent. Aaliyah felt sick, actually physically ill. This was the reality of Ji-sung's past, not the romanticized Robin Hood narrative she'd sometimes told herself, but actual bodies, actual families destroyed. "I'm sorry," Ji-sung said, and his voice was genuine. "I'm truly, deeply sorry for what happened to your family. If I could go back and change it, I would, but I can't, and taking Gia won't bring them back. No, but it will make you feel what I felt, that helplessness, that terror of knowing someone you love is in the hands of someone who doesn't care if they live or die. Please." Aaliyah couldn't stay silent anymore. "Please, Mr. Choi, I know you're hurting. I know you've lost people you loved, but Gia is innocent. She's never hurt anyone. She's just a child. So was my nephew." Minjai's voice was cold. "But you didn't care about him, did you? None of you cared." "I didn't know," Aaliyah said desperately. "I didn't know about any of this until today. I met Ji-sung after most of this happened. I fell in love with a man who was trying to change, who was..." "Enough." Minjai cut her off. "Here's what's going to happen. You have 72 hours to deliver Park Ji-sung to an address we'll provide. He comes alone, unarmed, ready to face real justice. If he does this, if he surrenders himself, I'll release Gia unharmed. She can go home to her mother, live her life, never think about this again." "And what happens to me?" Ji-sung asked. "That depends on how much you value your daughter's life. Will you trade it for yours? Will you finally accept responsibility for what you've done? Or will you hide behind your lawyers and your money and your reformed reputation while your daughter suffers? If I come to you, you'll let her go? You give me your word? I give you my word as a brother, as an uncle, as a man who spent 10 years waiting for this moment. You for her. A life for a life. That's justice. Don't do it," Ryu said immediately after Minjai hung up. "It's a trap. He'll kill you both." "Maybe," Ji-sung was staring at his phone. "But maybe he won't. Maybe his hatred is focused on me, and Gia really will walk away if I surrender." "You can't seriously be considering this." Dr. Chen stood. "Ji-sung, we have resources. We can find her another way." "In 72 hours? While Minjai has her somewhere we can't track?" Ji-sung shook his head. "He's been planning this for a decade. He's not making amateur mistakes." "Then we negotiate," Officer Kim suggested. "I can reach out through official channels, try to broker a deal that doesn't end with you dead." "No police," Aaliyah said sharply. He was clear about that. If we involve authorities, he'll kill her. Everyone looked at her. She felt their pity, their concern, their professional distance from this very personal horror. These people, even the ones who cared about them, were thinking strategically, but she was thinking like a mother. "We need to consider all options," Ji-sung said carefully. "Taewon, what are our resources for finding her independently?" Taewon pulled up data on his laptop. "I've already started. Putting out feelers in the old networks, seeing if anyone's heard anything about a kidnapping, reviewing traffic cameras near the school to track the vehicle, checking property records for any holdings registered to Minjae or his known associates. But sir," he paused, "this is going to take time we may not have." "What about the ransom?" Aaliyah asked. "He said he doesn't want money, but what if we offer it anyway?" "What if we—" "Money won't work." Ji-sung moved to sit beside her, taking her hand. "This is personal. He wants me to suffer, wants me to understand what he's felt for 10 years. Money is meaningless compared to that. Then what do we do?" Aaliyah's voice broke. "We can't just sit here for 72 hours hoping he doesn't hurt her. She must be so scared, Ji-sung. She doesn't understand what's happening or why someone would take her. She's probably terrified and crying and—" "Stop!" Ji-sung cupped her face, forcing her to meet his eyes. "Listen to me. Gia is smart. She's strong. She's her mother's daughter, which means she's a survivor. She will not break easily, and we are going to get her back. I swear to you on everything I am. Everything we've built. We will get our daughter back." "How can you promise that?" "Because I've been in impossible situations before and survived. Because I know how men like Minjai think. And because—" he took a breath, "because I'm willing to do whatever it takes, including trading my life for hers." "No," Aaliyah grabbed his shirt. "No, you don't get to make that decision alone. She's my daughter too. Which is exactly why I have to protect both of you. Aaliyah, if something happens to me, don't you dare finish that sentence." Tears streamed down her face. "We've survived everything together. The harassment, the shooting, the trial, the rebuilding, everything. We don't separate now. We don't sacrifice. We find another way." What if there is no other way? The question hung between them, terrible and real. Not Yun-hee, Ji-sung's mother, arrived 20 minutes later, having driven from Busan at dangerous speeds. She burst into the dining room, immediately going to Aaliyah. "Any news?" she asked in English, her accent still thick after all these years. "Nothing new." Aaliyah accepted her embrace. "He called. The man who took her. He wants Ji-sung in exchange." Yun-hee went rigid. She turned to her son, speaking rapid Korean. Aaliyah understood enough. Don't you dare give yourself to him. We'll find another way." "Oma," Ji-sung replied gently, also in Korean. "We may not have a choice." "There's always a choice." Yun-hee switched back to English, looking at the assembled group. "My son spent years in that terrible world. He killed, yes. He hurt people, yes. But he's paid his debt to society. He's changed. The law itself said he'd served his punishment. This man, this Min Jae, he wants revenge, not justice. Those are different things." "Tell that to his dead brother and nephew," Ji-sung said quietly. "Their deaths were tragedies, but taking Jia doesn't fix anything. It just creates more tragedy, more victims." Yun-hee moved to the windows, looking out at the garden where her granddaughter had played as a child. "We need to think like he does. Understand his pain, yes, but also understand his goal. What does he really want?" "He wants me to suffer," Ji-sung said. "Then give him that without giving him your life. Make him believe you're suffering. Buy time to find Jia another way." Aaliyah felt something shift in her chest, a spark of strategy, of possibility. "She's right. Min Jae wants you to feel helpless, wants to watch you break. So we break. We show him we're desperate, that we'll do anything. Meanwhile, we search. 72 hours isn't much time," Ryu pointed out. "Then we use every second." Aaliyah stood, feeling energy return to her limbs. She'd been passive, devastated, paralyzed by fear. But she'd survived 12 years in Seoul, had learned to navigate this culture and this language, had become a director of an international foundation. She'd faced down investigators and critics and every person who'd ever doubted that a black woman from Chicago could build something meaningful here. She wasn't about to lose her daughter without a fight. "Taewon, you focus on finding Min Jae's possible locations. Ryu, use your security contacts to track any unusual activity. Rentals, purchases, anything that suggests someone setting up a kidnapping operation. Dr. Chen, you reach out to the medical community. If Jia gets hurt or sick, Min Jae might need to call a doctor. Officer Kim, you do what you do best. Work the official channels without triggering an investigation. See if anyone's heard anything." Everyone stared at her. She felt Ji-sung's hand find hers, squeezing gently. "And us?" he asked quietly. "We prepare for every possibility, including the one where you have to meet him. But Ji-sung," she turned to face him fully, "if it comes to that, you don't go alone, and you don't go to die. You go to buy me time to get our daughter out. Understood?" Something like pride crossed his face. "Understood. Good." Aaliyah looked at each person in the room. "My daughter's out there somewhere, probably scared and confused, but she's not alone. We're all going to find her. And when we do, anyone who hurt her is going to wish they'd never been born." The words came out hard, cold, absolutely certain. Not the nurse who'd fled Director Kwan in fear 12 years ago. Not the woman who'd sometimes felt out of place in her adopted country. This was Aaliyah Miller Park, mother and warrior, and she would burn the world down to save her child. "Let's get to work," she said. And they did. The first 24 hours were agony disguised as productivity. Taiwan and his team reviewed thousands of hours of traffic camera footage, tracking the black sedan that had picked up Jia from school. They traced it to a warehouse district in Incheon before the vehicle disappeared into an area with no cameras. Ryu discovered that Min Jae had been in Seoul for at least 6 months, while using a false identity to rent 3 different properties, an apartment in Mapo, a storage unit in Gangnam, and a small house in the suburbs. They checked all 3, empty except for evidence that someone had been there recently. Dr. Chen's medical network contacts turned up nothing. Either Min Jae had planned well enough to have medical supplies on hand, or he was confident Jia wouldn't need medical attention. Neither possibility was comforting. Officer Kim worked his contacts in law enforcement carefully, asking questions without revealing why. He learned that there'd been chatter in the criminal underworld about something big happening related to the parks, but no specifics. And through it all, Ji-sung and Aaliyah waited. They tried to maintain normalcy, answering calls from concerned foundation staff with vague excuses about Jia being sick, responding to messages, pretending their world wasn't imploding, but every minute was torture. On the second night, 48 hours into the 72-hour deadline, Aaliyah found Ji-sung in Jia's room. He was sitting in her desk chair, surrounded by evidence of their daughter's life, Photos on the walls of her with friends, ribbons from debate team competitions, a half-finished chemistry project, Korean and English novels stacked on her nightstand. She wanted to be a doctor, Ji-sung said when Aaliyah entered. Did you know that? She told me last month that she wanted to study medicine, work with the foundation when she graduated. Combine her love of science with helping people, just like her mother. Aaliyah sat on Jia's bed, picking up the stuffed elephant that had been her daughter's favorite since age 3. She's going to be a doctor. She's going to graduate and go to college and change the world, because we're getting her back, are we? Ji-sung turned to look at her, and his face was ravaged by guilt and fear, and a grief so deep it looked physical. What if we don't? What if my past, my crimes, my sins, what if they cost us our daughter? How do I live with that? The same way you lived with everything else, by fighting, by refusing to give up. Aaliyah moved to kneel in front of him, taking his hands. I know you're scared. I'm terrified too. But Ji-sung, that girl out there, she's half you. She has your stubbornness, your intelligence, your absolute refusal to be broken. She's surviving this moment, wherever she is, and we're going to survive it too. I keep thinking about that day. The day the contaminated antibiotics killed those people. His voice was raw. I was in my office when the first report came in. A child had died, then another, then a third, and I knew it was my fault. I'd cut corners, trusted the wrong supplier, not verified the batch numbers properly. My negligence killed them. What did you do? I destroyed the remaining stock immediately, tracked down every dose I'd sold, bought them all back or destroyed them however I could. I paid for the funerals, sent money to the families through intermediaries. It was blood money, conscience money, completely inadequate, but it was all I could do. He looked at her. I never told you because I was ashamed, because it was the worst thing I did in that life. Not the violence, not the smuggling, the accidental deaths caused by my carelessness. Ji-sung, and now it's come back. 10 years later, it's taken our daughter. That's karma. That's justice. No, Aaliyah shook him slightly. That's not justice. That's vengeance. And our daughter isn't payment for your sins. She's an innocent person who deserves to live her life free from your past. We're going to make that possible. Before he could respond, Taewon appeared in the doorway. We found something. You need to see this now. They rushed to the command center. Taewon had security footage pulled up on the main monitor. Grainy, black and white, time-stamped 40 minutes ago. This is from a convenience store in Paju, near the North Korean border. Watch. The footage showed a man entering the store. Middle-aged Korean, wearing a baseball cap and jacket. He bought water, snacks, bandages, nothing unusual. But then, as he was leaving, a young woman entered. Ji-ah. Aaliyah's hand flew to her mouth. Her daughter was alive, walking on her own. No obvious injuries. She was wearing her school uniform still, her braids slightly messed up but intact. She looked tired, scared, but unharmed. The video showed Min-jae grab Ji-ah's arm, pulling her back before she could enter the store fully. He spoke to her. The footage had no audio, and she nodded, shoulders slumping in defeat. They left together. She tried to run, Aaliyah whispered. She saw the store and tried to get help. And he stopped her. Ji-sung's voice was cold rage, which means she's looking for opportunities. She's fighting back. It also tells us where they are. Taewon zoomed out on a map. Paju is 60 kilometers from Seoul, near the DMZ. Lots of rural areas, abandoned buildings from the war era. Good place to hide someone. Can we narrow it down more? Aaliyah asked. Working on it, I've got contacts checking rental properties, abandoned sites, anything that could hide 2 people for 3 days. Taewon paused. But Mrs. Park, you should know. Being that close to the North Korean border might mean he's planning an escape route. If things go wrong, he could attempt to cross. He'd never make it, Ji-sung said. Maybe, but desperate men do desperate things. The call came 20 minutes later. Unknown number again. This time, Ji-sung let it ring 3 times before answering, trying to project calm he didn't feel. Yes. Did you see her? Min-jae's voice was sharp. On the security footage? I made sure she'd be visible. Wanted you to know she's still alive, still has a chance to stay that way. I saw. Thank you for that. Ji-sung kept his voice neutral. She looked well. She is, for now. Fed, sheltered, treated reasonably well. I'm not a monster, Park Ji-sung. I don't enjoy hurting children, but I will if you force my hand. I won't. I'm preparing to meet your terms. Good. Here's what happens next. Tomorrow at noon, you'll receive GPS coordinates. You have 1 hour to reach the location. Come alone. No guards, no police, no weapons. If I detect any surveillance, any tracking devices, any tricks, she dies. If you comply, I'll release her. She can call her mother for pickup, walk away from this completely unharmed. And me? You face consequences, real ones. The kind you've avoided for too long. I understand. Ji-sung glanced at Aaliyah. But I need assurance. I need to speak to Jia, confirm she's really okay before I agree to come. Silence. Then, 1 minute, that's all you get. Rustling sounds, footsteps. Then a voice Aaliyah knew better than her own heartbeat. Dad? Jia. Baby, are you okay? Has he hurt you? Ji-sung's voice cracked slightly. I'm okay. Scared but okay. He hasn't hurt me. Just do what he says, okay? Please, Dad, I want to come home. You will, I promise. Your mom and I love you so much. You know that, right? I know. I love you too. And Mom, tell her I love her. Tell her I'm sorry for... Jia's voice broke into sobs. Then Minjae was back on the line. That's enough. Tomorrow noon. Coordinates incoming. Don't be late, Park Ji-sung. Your daughter's life depends on it. He hung up. Aaliyah was crying, great heaving sobs that she couldn't control. Their daughter was alive, was relatively okay, would be home soon if Ji-sung just... No, she said through tears. No, you can't go. We heard her, we know she's alive. Now we use the Paju information to find her before noon tomorrow. We get her out ourselves. And if we don't find her in time? Ji-sung asked gently. If we're even 1 minute late to those coordinates, if Minjae sees any sign of a rescue attempt, then we have Taewon track you. We have backup ready. Aaliyah, he took her hands. I'm going alone. No tracking devices, no backup, no tricks. Because that's what keeps our daughter alive. But what keeps you alive? Maybe nothing. Maybe this is how it ends. The universe finally balancing the scales. He pulled her close. But if my death buys Jia's freedom, if it means she gets to grow up and become that doctor she wants to be, if it means you get to keep being her mother, then it's a trade I make without hesitation. I won't let you. You don't have a choice. They stood there, locked together, both knowing he was right and both hating it with every fiber of their being. Then Yoon-hee spoke from the doorway, her voice cutting through their despair like a blade. There is another option. One you're both too close to see. Everyone turned to look at her. What option? Ji-sung asked. Me. Yoon-hee walked into the room with the bearing of a woman who'd made a decision and would not be swayed. I go instead of you. No. Listen, Minjae wants justice for his family. He wants to see a Park suffer. He wants consequences. She smiled sadly. I'm a Park. I'm the reason you became what you became. After your father died, I abandoned you. I let you build that criminal empire alone because I was too weak to stay and guide you. Every person you killed, every life you ruined, I'm complicit in all of it. I should have been there. I should have stopped you. That's not your fault, Ji-sung said firmly. I made my own choices. And I made mine. Now I'm making another one. Yoon-hee looked at Aaliyah. Your daughter needs her father. She needs both her parents, but she doesn't need her grandmother. Not the same way. I'm 70 years old. I've lived a full life. If my death can save my granddaughter and keep my son alive to raise her, that's a trade I make gladly. He won't accept that, Aaliyah said, or even as her heart broke at the offer. He wants Ji-sung specifically. Maybe not, but we won't know unless we offer. Yoon-hee sat down at the table. Call him back, propose the trade, see what he says. The room erupted in argument, Taewon saying it was tactically foolish, Ryu pointing out that it might trigger Minjae to violence, Dr. Chen trying to find a middle ground. But Aaliyah watched Ji-sung's face and saw the calculation happening, saw him weighing options and odds and the terrible arithmetic of choosing who lives and who dies. No, he said finally. I won't risk both of you. I won't let either of you walk into that situation. We stick with the plan. I go. We trust Minjae to keep his word about releasing Jia. And if he doesn't? Aaliyah demanded. If he kills you both anyway, then at least I die protecting my family. That's all I've wanted for 10 years. To be someone worth saving. To be the father and husband you both deserve. He looked at each person in the room. Thank you, all of you, for everything you've done. But this is my decision to make. The next 12 hours crawled by. They slept in shifts, no one wanting to be unconscious when the coordinates arrived. Aaliyah lay beside Ji-sung in their bed, memorizing the feel of him, the sound of his breathing, the way his hand unconsciously reached for hers even in sleep. If this was their last night together, she wanted to remember everything. At 11:45 a.m., 15 minutes before noon, Ji-sung's phone buzzed. A text message, GPS coordinates and a single line. 1 hour. They come alone. Ji-sung showed it to the group assembled in the command center. The coordinates pointed to an abandoned industrial complex 40 kilometers from Paju, deep in rural territory near the DMZ. That's an hour drive in good traffic, Taewon noted. Less if you speed. Then I'd better get moving. Ji-sung stood, accepting his cane from Mrs. Bayek, who'd been crying quietly in the corner all morning. Aaliyah followed him to the garage where one of their cars waited, a modest sedan, nothing flashy or trackable. He'd already removed his phone, his watch, anything that could be used to locate him. Ji-sung, don't. He cupped her face. Don't say goodbye, say, see you soon. Because I will see you soon. Be with our daughter. Promise me. I promise to do everything in my power to come home to you. That's not the same thing. It's the only thing I can promise. He kissed her, deep and desperate and devastating. Take care of our daughter. If she comes back and I don't, tell her I love her. Tell her I was proud of the woman she was becoming. Tell her to be a doctor, to be brilliant, to live a life so big and beautiful that my death becomes just a footnote in her story. Tell her yourself. Aaliyah grabbed his shirt. Come back and tell her yourself. I'll try. He kissed her forehead, her cheeks, her lips one more time. I love you, more than I've ever loved anything. You saved me, Aaliyah. In that hospital room 12 years ago, you saved me. And you've been saving me every day since. Then he was in the car, pulling out of the garage, driving away while she stood there watching the man she loved disappear toward possible death. Taiwan appeared at her shoulder. The tracker is in his cane, Aaliyah finished. I know. I put it there this morning when he was in the shower. It's subtle enough that Minjai won't detect it unless he's specifically looking. And if he is, then we pray Ji-sung can talk his way out of it. She turned to face him. How fast can you mobilize a team? Already done. 8 of my best people, all armed, all ready to move on your signal. Taiwan pulled up a map on his tablet. We'll stay 2 kilometers back, monitor his location. The moment he stops moving, we move in. What if it's a trap? What if Minjai has people watching for exactly that? Then we deal with it. But Mrs. Park, he looked at her seriously. You need to prepare for the possibility that we don't get there in time, that Minjai does something before we can intervene. I know. Aaliyah's jaw clenched. But I'd rather try and fail than not try at all. They went back inside, where Yoon-hee, Mrs. Bayek, and the others were monitoring the tracker's signal. The dot representing Ji-sung moved steadily north, following the route to the coordinates. 53 minutes later, at exactly noon, the dot stopped moving. He's there, Taewon confirmed. Industrial Complex, Building 3. No movement in the surrounding area that we can detect. How long until your team arrives? Aaliyah asked. 12 minutes. That's too long. Anything could happen in 12 minutes. I know, but it's the best we can do without revealing our presence prematurely. They watched the screen, seconds ticking by. The dot representing Ji-sung remained stationary. Then Aaliyah's phone rang. Jia's number. She nearly dropped the phone in her rush to answer. Jia, baby, where are you? Mom. Her daughter's voice was shaking but alive, so beautifully alive. I'm okay. He let me go. He said I could call you. I'm at a gas station in Paju. The manager's going to drive me to the police station and— No! Aaliyah interrupted. No police. Give me the address. I'll come get you myself. Right now. Jia rattled off the address. Aaliyah was already moving, grabbing keys, heading for the garage with Taewon and Yoon-hee right behind her. Mom, what about Dad? He's going to be fine. Everything's going to be fine. Stay at that gas station. Don't move. Don't talk to anyone except the manager. I'm coming. She hung up and ran. The drive to Paju took 47 minutes that felt like hours. Aaliyah white-knuckled the steering wheel while Yoon-hee made calls coordinating with Taewon's team at the industrial complex. They still had eyes on Ji-sung's location. He hadn't moved. The gas station appeared ahead, a small, run-down place on a rural highway. And there, standing outside under the fluorescent lights, looking small and scared and perfect, was Jia. Aaliyah was out of the car before it fully stopped, running, catching her daughter in her arms and holding her so tight it probably hurt, but not caring. Not caring about anything except this solid proof that her child was alive. Mom, I can't breathe, Jia gasped. Don't care. Never letting you go again. But she did loosen her grip enough for Yoon-hee to embrace her granddaughter, for both of them to check her over. No visible injuries, just exhaustion and stress and the remnants of fear. Are you hurt anywhere? Did he hurt you? Aaliyah ran her hands over Jia's arms, her face checking with nurse's efficiency. I'm okay, really. He was scary, but he didn't hurt me. Just kept me in this room, brought me food, asked me questions about Dad. Jia's eyes filled with tears. Mom, where's Dad? He went to trade himself for me, didn't he? Where is he? Aaliyah's phone rang. Taewon. Mrs. Park, we're at the complex, but his voice was strained. We have a situation. You need to see this. What kind of situation? Just come. Bring Jia. Trust me. The industrial complex was exactly as abandoned and creepy as Aaliyah had imagined. Rusty equipment, broken windows, the ghost of industrial activity long dead. Taewon's team had secured the perimeter, professional and armed, and looking like they'd hoped to see more action. Taewon led them to Building 3. Inside, in what had once been a factory floor, she saw 2 figures. Ji-sung sitting in his wheelchair. When had he gotten his wheelchair? It hadn't been in the car. And Minjai, Also sitting, across from him, two men, talking. "What is this?" Aaliyah demanded. Both men looked up. Ji-sung's face transformed when he saw Ji-ah. He opened his arms and she ran to him, collapsing into his embrace while he held her and cried and whispered Korean words that Aaliyah knew meant my daughter, you're safe. Aaliyah approached Min-jae carefully. He was older than she'd imagined, maybe early 60s, with the kind of worn face that came from a decade of grief. "And you let them both go," she said. "I did. Why?" Min-jae stood slowly, and she saw he was unarmed. No gun, no knife, just an old man carrying weight he couldn't put down. Because when he arrived, when I saw him struggle to get out of that car, needing his cane just to walk, I remembered. My brother was strong, quick, dangerous, a fighter. The man Park Ji-sung killed was a threat. He gestured at Ji-sung. But this man isn't who killed my brother. This is someone different, someone who's paid in ways that matter more than death. The paralysis, Aaliyah said quietly. Partial paralysis, chronic pain, limited mobility. A life sentence served daily in a body that won't cooperate. Min-jae's voice was soft. I watched my nephew die over 3 days, watched him suffer as that bacteria destroyed his insides. And I realized making Park Ji-sung suffer a quick death would be mercy, but he's already suffering, has been for 12 years, will be for the rest of his life. That's justice, slow, permanent, inescapable. "I'm still sorry," Ji-sung said from where he sat with Jia. "For your nephew, for your brother, for all of it. I know my suffering doesn't change what happened to them, but I am genuinely, deeply sorry." Min-jae looked at him for a long moment. Then at Jia, still clinging to her father like she'd never let go. "She looks like you," he said. "Your daughter, she has your eyes. She has her mother's strength." "Yes, I saw that too. She tried to escape twice, brave girl. Foolish, but brave." Min-jae moved toward the door. "I'm leaving Korea, tonight. Going somewhere I can finally forget, finally let go. I don't expect forgiveness. I don't deserve it, but I hope," his voice caught, "I hope you can look at your daughter and understand why I did what I did, why I needed you to feel what I felt." "I understand," Ji-sung said, "and I forgive you." The words seemed to break something in Min-jae. He nodded once, then walked out into the fading afternoon light. Taiwan moved to follow. "Should we stop him? He committed kidnapping, made terroristic threats." "Let him go," Aaliyah said. "He's a man who lost everything and spent 10 years drowning in grief. He doesn't need prison. He needs peace." They watched him disappear. Then, Tawan's team began securing the scene, making sure there were no other surprises. Jia pulled back from Ji-sung enough to look at her mother. "I knew you'd come. Both of you. I knew you wouldn't leave me." "Never," Aaliyah promised, moving to embrace them both. "We will never leave you." They stayed like that, the three of them wrapped around each other, while the sun set on the worst 72 hours of their lives. On the drive home, Jia asked the question Aaliyah had been dreading. "Dad, is it true, what that man said? About people you killed, about contaminated medicine?" Ji-sung glanced at Aaliyah in the rearview mirror. She nodded slightly. Their daughter deserved truth. "Yes," he said. "It's true. I did terrible things before you were born. Things I've spent the last 15 years trying to atone for. I don't expect you to understand or forgive, but I need you to know, I'm not that person anymore. I'm trying every day to be someone better." Jia was quiet for a long time. Then, "Mom says you saved her. That day in the hospital, when she was running from someone bad, you helped her when you didn't have to." "I did. And you built the foundation to help people who can't afford medicine, to fix the systems that made you a criminal in the first place." "I'm trying." "Then that's who you are, not who you were. The person you choose to be now." Jia reached forward from the backseat to squeeze his shoulder. "I love you, Dad. Even knowing all of this, I love you." Ji-sung's hands tightened on the steering wheel. "I love you too, more than you'll ever know." When they got home, Mrs. Baek had prepared Jia's favorite foods and drawn her a bath and basically treated her like royalty. Yoon-hee fussed over her, checking and rechecking for injuries Aaliyah had already confirmed didn't exist. That night, after Jia had fallen asleep in her own bed with her door open and both parents checking on her every 30 minutes, Aaliyah and Ji-sung lay in their bedroom trying to process everything. "I thought I'd lost you both," Ji-sung whispered into the darkness. "For 12 hours, I thought my past had finally taken everything. But it didn't. We survived." Aaliyah turned to face him. "Ji-sung, what Min-jae said about your suffering being justice, that's not true. You're not being punished. You're living with the consequences of choices you made. Yes, but you're also living, building, creating good. That's different from punishment." "Is it? Because some days it doesn't feel different. Some days my legs hurt so badly I can barely walk, and I think, this is what I deserve. This is karma." "Stop," She kissed him fiercely. Your paralysis isn't karma. It's a medical condition from a violent attack. What you do with it, how you've refused to let it destroy you, how you've built a life anyway, that's what defines you. Not the pain, not the limitations, the perseverance. He pulled her close, and they lay there in the dark, survivors of another impossible situation, grateful for another day together. The next 3 weeks were complicated. Jia returned to school but insisted on therapy to process the trauma. Aaliyah found her a Korean-American therapist who specialized in kidnapping victims and PTSD. The sessions helped, slowly. At the foundation, they faced a crisis. Somehow news of the kidnapping had leaked, not the full details. Tawan had been careful to keep Minjai's identity and the specifics contained, but enough that reporters were asking questions. And questions about Ji-sung's past, about whether his criminal history made him unfit to run a pharmaceutical advocacy organization. You need to address this, Dr. Chen said during an emergency board meeting. The silence is feeding speculation. People are wondering what you're hiding. I'm hiding that a man kidnapped my daughter to punish me for deaths I caused 15 years ago, Ji-sung said bluntly. How exactly do I address that publicly? With honesty. This came from an unexpected source, Officer Kim, who joined the Foundation's advisory board 3 years ago. You've always been honest about your past when asked. Don't stop now. So, Ji-sung held a press conference. He stood at a podium in front of 50 reporters and television cameras, Aaliyah beside him, and told the truth. Not all of it. Some details were too painful, too personal, but enough. 15 years ago, I was a different person. I ran a criminal organization that smuggled pharmaceuticals across international borders. In the process of building that organization, I hurt people. 17 people died either directly or indirectly because of my actions. 3 of those deaths were children who received contaminated medication that I failed to properly verify. The room erupted with questions. He held up a hand. I stood trial for my crimes. I was convicted, served my sentence, and have spent the last decade trying to make amends through legal channels. The Foundation's work, providing pharmaceutical access to underserved communities, is my attempt to fix the systems that created criminals like me in the first place. It doesn't erase what I did. Nothing can erase that, but it's what I can do now. Mr. Park, is it true your daughter was kidnapped by a family member of one of your victims? A reporter shouted. Yes. 3 weeks ago, my daughter was taken by someone seeking revenge for deaths I caused. He's since left Korea and, as far as I know, is no longer a threat. My daughter is safe, recovering, and has requested privacy during this difficult time. Do you feel you deserve to run a foundation given your criminal past? I don't know if I deserve anything, but I do know that I have experience, connections, and understanding of pharmaceutical supply chains that few others possess. I've chosen to use that knowledge for good. Whether that's enough to redeem me isn't for me to decide. It's for the people we serve, for our donors, and for this community to judge. More questions. Some hostile, some sympathetic, all invasive. But Ji-sung answered them all with the same calm honesty that had characterized his transformation. When it was over, when the reporters had finally been satisfied or exhausted, Aaliyah took his hand as they walked to the car. How do you feel? She asked. Exposed, vulnerable, like I just painted a target on my back for anyone else seeking revenge. But also free, maybe? No more hiding? He considered this. Maybe. We'll see how the board responds. The Foundation's board met 2 days later. It was, as Dr. Chen had warned, contentious. Some board members argued Ji-sung should step down as director, that his criminal past made him a liability. Others pointed to the Foundation's success, the lives saved, the policies changed. The vote was close. In the end, they compromised. Ji-sung would remain as director, but with increased oversight and a commitment to complete transparency about his past. Any future issues related to his criminal history would result in immediate resignation. I can live with that, he told Aaliyah that evening. It's fair. But the stress had taken a physical toll. His legs, always unpredictable, were getting worse. Some days he could barely walk even with his cane. Other days the pain was so intense he couldn't get out of bed. Dr. Han ran tests, adjusted medications, suggested another surgery. Ji-sung refused. I've had enough surgeries, he said during a particularly difficult appointment. I'm not going under the knife again just to maybe walk a little easier. The nerve damage is progressing, Dr. Han warned. If we don't intervene, you could lose what function you have left. Then I'll use the wheelchair full time. I've done it before. Ji-sung, Aaliyah interjected. You're in pain, constant pain. This isn't about walking, it's about quality of life. My quality of life is fine. I have you, I have Jia, I have meaningful work. I don't need working legs to have those things. But she saw through the bravado, saw the way he winced when he thought no one was looking. saw him taking extra pain medication, saw the exhaustion in his eyes. That night, Gia came to their bedroom. She'd been mostly quiet since the kidnapping, processing everything with her therapist but not talking much at home. "Dad, can I ask you something? Anything. If you could go back and change things, not just the bad things you did, but everything, would you?" Ji-sung thought carefully. "You mean, would I choose a different life? One without crime, without consequences, without the paralysis? Yeah. No, because that different life wouldn't have led me to your mother, wouldn't have created you, and you two are the best things that ever happened to me. So no, I wouldn't change it. I'd just try to do the bad parts less badly." Gia nodded. "I've been thinking about what happened, about Minjai and his family, and I realized I'm only here because of all those choices you made, good and bad. If you'd been a different person, made different choices, I wouldn't exist. That's true. So I can be sad about the people you hurt, and I can wish you'd done things differently. But I can also be grateful that your choices somehow led to me existing. Is that wrong?" "No, sweetheart, that's not wrong. That's being human, holding multiple truths at once." Gia hugged him tightly. "I'm glad I exist, even if the reason is complicated." After she left, Aaliyah snuggled against Ji-sung. "She's going to be okay, better than okay, because of you. You're the reason she's resilient, strong, capable of processing complex emotions. I'm the reason she asks uncomfortable questions and refuses to accept simple answers," Aaliyah corrected. "But yeah, I'll take credit for that." They fell asleep holding each other. The crisis passed, the family intact if a little battered, but the universe wasn't done testing them yet. 2 months later, on a cold December morning, Ji-sung collapsed during a foundation meeting. 1 minute he was presenting the annual budget, the next he was on the floor, unconscious. Aaliyah, who'd been in the meeting as director of medical programs, immediately went into crisis mode, checked his pulse, breathing, cleared his airway, called for emergency services while Dr. Chen and the others looked on in horror. "What's happening?" someone asked. "I don't know," Aaliyah said, and the admission terrified her. She was a nurse, she should know, but Ji-sung's symptoms didn't fit any pattern she recognized. Unconscious, but breathing normally. Pulse, steady. No signs of stroke or heart attack. The ambulance arrived. They transported him to Seoul National Hospital, the same hospital where they'd first met 12 years ago, the same hospital where he'd recovered from his shooting. Dr. Han met them in the emergency department. "We're running tests, CT scan, MRI, full blood panel. Oh, we'll figure this out." Aaliyah sat in the waiting room with Yoon-hee and Jia, watching the minutes tick by. 72 minutes, the same amount of time Minjai had given them, though that particular irony was lost on no one. Finally, Dr. Han emerged. His face was grim. "It's the old injury, the spinal damage from the shooting. There's been progressive deterioration we didn't catch. A piece of scar tissue broke free and caused a temporary blockage of cerebral spinal fluid. That's what caused the collapse. But he's okay now?" Aaliyah stood. "He's conscious, stable." But Aaliyah, Dr. Han's use of her first name was ominous. "The deterioration is extensive. If we don't operate soon, he's going to lose all motor function below the chest. Complete paralysis." The words hit like a physical blow. "How soon?" "Weeks, maybe days. The surgery is risky. We'd be operating on damaged nerves that have been compromised for 15 years. Success rate is maybe 60%. And if it fails, he could end up worse, or he could die on the table. The risk is substantial." What does Ji-sung say? He says no. Says he's lived with partial paralysis this long. He can manage complete paralysis if it comes to that. "That's ridiculous," Aaliyah said immediately. "He has to have the surgery." "That's not our choice to make." But Aaliyah was already moving, heading to Ji-sung's room. She found him sitting up in bed, connected to monitors but looking alert and frustrated. "Before you start," he said when he saw her expression, "the answer is no. You haven't heard the question. The question is, will I have risky surgery that might kill me or leave me worse off? And the answer is no. I won't put you and Gia through that." "Don't." Aaliyah sat on the edge of his bed. "Don't make this about protecting us. This is about you being scared." "Of course I'm scared. I'm terrified. But I'm also realistic. I'm 47 years old with 15 years of nerve damage. The odds aren't good. 60% success rate isn't bad. It's also 40% chance of catastrophic failure." He took her hand. "Aaliyah, I've made peace with the wheelchair, with limited mobility, with chronic pain. I can live with complete paralysis if I have to. What I can't live with is dying on that operating table and leaving you and Gia alone. And what if the deterioration progresses anyway? What if you become completely paralyzed without the surgery? At least with surgery, there's a chance of preventing that, or accelerating it, or ending me entirely." They stared at each other, deadlocked. "I can't lose you," Aaliyah whispered. "Not like this, not when there's a chance to fix it. And I can't risk leaving you, not when staying alive, even diminished, means more time together." That's not more time. That's existing. There's a difference. Not to me. Every day I wake up next to you is a gift. Walking or not walking doesn't change that. Aaliyah wanted to scream, to rage, to force him to see reason. But she'd learned over 12 years that Ji-sung couldn't be forced. He had to choose. So she tried a different approach. What does Jia want? She asked. He blinked. Wait, what? Our daughter. The one we just got back from a kidnapper. The one who's been dealing with trauma and fear and uncertainty. What would she want her father to do? That's not fair. No, it's not. But answer the question anyway. Ji-sung closed his eyes. She'd want me to fight, to take the chance, to not give up. Then do that. For her, if not for yourself. He was quiet for a long time. Then, I need to think about it. How long? The doctors say I have maybe a week before the surgery becomes too dangerous. So a week. Okay? But Ji-sung? She leaned forward to kiss him gently. I'm not giving up on you, even if you're ready to. She left before he could respond. The next 3 days were tense. Ji-sung stayed in the hospital for observation, while Aaliyah and Dr. Han monitored his condition. The deterioration was visible now. Increased numbness, decreased control over the muscles he did have, more frequent pain episodes. Jia visited every day after school. She'd sit with her father, doing homework or reading aloud or just talking. Aaliyah watched their relationship deepen through crisis, watched her daughter become the cheerleader her father needed. You're going to have the surgery, right? Jia asked on day 4. You're not going to just give up? It's not giving up to accept reality, Ji-sung said gently. It is if the reality could be changed. She set down her chemistry textbook. Dad, I almost lost you 3 months ago. I spent 72 hours thinking I might never see you again. And now you're telling me you might choose to let yourself deteriorate rather than fight? That's not the man who raised me. That's not the man who rebuilt his entire life from nothing. Jia, I'm scared too. I'm terrified the surgery will go wrong and I'll lose you anyway. But I'd rather know we tried than wonder if we could have saved you and didn't. She left to get snacks from the cafeteria, leaving Ji-sung staring after her with something like awe on his face. Aaliyah entered shortly after. She's right, you know. When did our daughter get so wise? She's always been wise. You just usually don't see it because you're too busy being overprotective. Aaliyah sat in the chair Jia had vacated. Have you made a decision? I think so. He looked at her. But I need you to promise me something first. Anything. If the surgery goes wrong, if I end up on life support or in a vegetative state, you let me go. No heroic measures, no keeping me alive artificially. You and Jia deserve to move forward, not spend years maintaining a shell. Ji-sung, promise me, Aaliyah. Please. It's the only way I can do this, knowing that if the worst happens, you're not trapped taking care of a body without a mind. She wanted to refuse, wanted to insist she'd fight for every second of his life, conscious or not, but she understood what he was asking for, the same dignity he'd tried to maintain through every stage of his paralysis. I promise, she said quietly, but you have to promise me something too. What? That you'll fight, not just go into that surgery resigned to failure, but actually fight to come back to us, to your life, your work, your family. Promise me you'll try. I promise. They held each other's gaze, both knowing they'd just made vows that might break their hearts. The surgery was scheduled for December 23rd, on 2 days before Christmas. The irony wasn't lost on anyone, spending the holidays either celebrating Ji-sung's survival or mourning his death. The night before surgery, the family gathered. Yoon-hee flew in from Busan. Mrs. Bayak prepared a feast. Taiwan and his wife came, as did Dr. Chen and her husband. Even Ryu made an appearance, looking uncomfortable in the domestic setting but determined to say goodbye just in case. They ate and talked and pretended everything was normal. Jia showed them her latest chemistry project. Dr. Chen discussed the Foundation's new Southeast Asia initiative. Taiwan told embarrassing stories about Ji-sung from their younger days. And through it all, Aaliyah memorized. The way Ji-sung laughed at Taiwan's stories, the way he looked at Jia with such fierce pride, and the way his hand found hers under the table and held on like she was his anchor. After everyone left, after Jia had gone to bed, Aaliyah helped Ji-sung through his evening routine. It had become automatic over the years. Medications, exercises, the careful dance of managing chronic pain and limited mobility. I'm going to miss this, he said as she helped him into bed. You'll be doing it again soon. Dr. Han says recovery is 6 to 8 weeks before you're mobile again. If I survive. When you survive. He pulled her close. Thank you. For what? For 12 years of refusing to give up on me. For believing I was worth saving even when I didn't believe it myself. For being the strongest person I've ever met. He kissed her softly. I love you more than language can express. You know that, right? I know. And I love you too, which is why you're going to survive this surgery and come back to me. She rested her head on his chest, listening to his heartbeat. Because I'm not done with you yet, Park Ji-sung. We have decades left, grandchildren to spoil, a foundation to grow, a life to live. I hope so. I know so. They fell asleep tangled together, pretending tomorrow wasn't coming. The hospital at 5 a.m. was eerily quiet. They'd arrived early for pre-op, and now Ji-sung was being prepped while Aaliyah waited with his belongings and her rapidly disintegrating composure. Dr. Han appeared in his surgical scrubs. We're ready. Any last questions? How long? Aaliyah asked. 8 to 10 hours if everything goes smoothly. 12 to 14 if we encounter complications. Someone will update you every 2 hours. What are his actual chances? Not the official 60%, but really? Dr. Han paused. Honestly, 50-50. The damage is extensive, the procedure is delicate, and we're operating on tissue that's been compromised for 15 years. But he's strong, stubborn, and has something to fight for. That matters more than you'd think. They let her see him one more time before they took him to the operating room. He was drowsy from pre-medication, but alert enough to smile when she entered. Hey, he said. Hey yourself. She took his hand. Remember what you promised. To fight, I remember. Good. Because Gia and I are going to be right here waiting, so you'd better come back to us. I will. I promise. He squeezed her hand weakly. And Aaliyah? If something goes wrong, nothing's going wrong. But if it does, I need you to know you were the best thing that ever happened to me. You and Gia. Everything good in my life came from that moment you walked into my hospital room 12 years ago. I wouldn't trade a single second of what we've built together. Not for working legs, not for a clean past, not for anything. Tears streamed down her face. Stop saying goodbye. I'm not. I'm saying thank you. There's a difference. They kissed one more time. Then the orderlies came and wheeled him away, and Aaliyah stood in the pre-op area watching the love of her life disappear through double doors that read, Authorized Personnel Only. She made her way to the surgical waiting room where Yoon-hee and Gia were already settled. They'd arrived an hour ago, too anxious to sleep. How is he? Yoon-hee asked. Brave, scared, ready? Aaliyah sat between them. Now we wait. And wait they did. 2 hours in, a surgical nurse came out with an update. The procedure has begun. All vitals are stable. Dr. Han says it's progressing as expected. 4 hours in. We've accessed the damaged area. Dr. Han is working on removing scar tissue. Everything remains stable. 6 hours in. We've encountered some unexpected bleeding. It's under control, but the procedure will take longer than anticipated. Dr. Han says not to worry. This is manageable. But Aaliyah did worry. Worried about every minute that ticked past, worried about Ji-sung under anesthesia for so long, worried about what unexpected bleeding really meant. Gia leaned against her shoulder. He's going to make it, right? He has to. I haven't given him permission to die. I don't think death asks permission. It does from the Parks. We're too stubborn to die without a fight. 8 hours in, Tywin arrived with food no one wanted to eat. Mrs. Beck came with prayer beads, sitting in the corner muttering Buddhist chants. Dr. Chen showed up with encouraging statistics about surgical success rates that Aaliyah appreciated, even though she didn't quite believe them. 10 hours in, the nurse's update was brief. Still ongoing. Vitals remain stable. Dr. Han says we're in the final stages. 12 hours after Ji-sung had been wheeled into surgery, Dr. Han finally emerged. His scrubs were stained with blood. His face was exhausted, and his expression was unreadable. Aaliyah stood, her heart hammering so hard she thought it might break through her ribs. How is he, doctor? Base Han pulled off his surgical cap. The surgery was successful. We removed all the damaged tissue, reinforced the affected nerves, and stabilized the spinal area. He's in recovery now, still under anesthesia, but his vitals are strong. Aaliyah's knees nearly buckled. Yoon-hee caught her, holding her up while she processed the words. Successful, strong vitals. In recovery, he was alive. When can I see him? She managed. Another hour while he wakes up. But I need to prepare you. We won't know the full extent of success for days or even weeks. He might regain mobility. He might not. He might wake up with the same limitations or worse, or potentially better. It's too soon to know. But he's alive. He's alive. Then the rest we can figure out. Aaliyah hugged Dr. Han impulsively. Thank you. Thank you so much. The hour waiting for Ji-sung to wake was somehow longer than the previous 12. Aaliyah paced the recovery room corridor, checking her watch every 30 seconds, driving Yoon-hee crazy with her restless energy. Finally, a nurse appeared. He's awake, a little confused from the anesthesia but asking for his wife. Aaliyah nearly ran to his room. He was pale, connected to more machines than she could count, but his eyes were open and tracking her movement as she entered. Hey, she said, her voice breaking. Hey. His voice was hoarse from the breathing tube. Did it work? We don't know yet. Too early to tell. But you're alive, and that's what matters. Can I? He frowned, clearly trying to move. I can't feel my legs. That's normal after spinal surgery. The anesthesia affects everything. Give it time. But she saw the fear in his eyes, saw him realizing he might have traded his current limitations for worse ones, saw the calculation happening. Had this been worth it? Ji-sung, look at me. She took his hand. Whatever happens with your mobility, we deal with it together, okay? You're alive, you survived. Everything else is manageable. I can't feel anything below my chest, he said, and there was panic creeping into his voice. Aaliyah, what if... Stop. You're catastrophizing. Wait for the anesthesia to wear off fully. Wait for the swelling to go down. Wait for your body to heal. Then we assess. But right now you just survived 12 hours of surgery on your spine. That's the victory we're celebrating. He searched her face, then nodded. Okay, you're right. I'm just scared. I know, me too. But we're scared together, which makes it bearable. Gia was allowed in next, and she dissolved into tears the moment she saw her father awake. He held her with one arm, the IV in the other making movement difficult, and whispered reassurances that everything would be fine. Over the next 3 days, sensations slowly returned. First his chest, then his abdomen, then, finally, his legs. Not full sensation, not normal sensation, but something. I can feel you touching my knee, he told Dr. Han on day 3. It's distant, like through cotton, but I can feel it. That's excellent progress. Better than I expected this soon. Dr. Han made notes on his tablet. We'll start physical therapy tomorrow. Very gentle. Just seeing what you can do. No expectations, no pressure. We're gathering data. The first physical therapy session was humbling. Ji-sung couldn't move his legs at all, couldn't even wiggle his toes, but he could feel the therapist touching him, could sense pressure and temperature. That was something. By week 2, he could flex his left foot slightly. By week 3, both feet. By week 4, he was attempting to bend his knees with assistance. It's working, Aaliyah said during one session, watching the therapist help Ji-sung through exercises. Slowly, but working. Maybe. Ji-sung's face was set in concentration. Or maybe this is as good as it gets. Slightly better sensation, but no actual improvement in function. You're moving your feet. That's improvement. Compared to what? To before the surgery when I could walk with a cane. This is worse, Aaliyah. I'm worse than I was. She wanted to argue, wanted to insist he was being pessimistic, but he was right. Now, before surgery, he'd been mobile, limited, yes, painful, yes, but independent. Now he was bedridden, dependent on nurses and therapists for everything. Had they made the right choice? The question haunted her through January and into February. Ji-sung worked tirelessly in therapy, pushed himself to exhaustion, but progress was glacially slow. Some days he could bend his knees a few inches, other days nothing worked. And through it all, the foundation needed leadership. Dr. Chen stepped in as interim director, but decisions piled up that required Ji-sung's input. They set up a system where he could participate in meetings via video conference from his hospital bed, but it was awkward and frustrating. I should just resign, he said one evening after a particularly difficult meeting. Let Dr. Chen take over permanently. She's doing a better job than I could right now anyway. You don't mean that, don't I? I can't even get out of bed, Aaliyah. What use am I to anyone? You're used to me, to Gia, to the thousands of people who benefit from your expertise and vision at the foundation. She sat on the edge of his bed. This is depression talking. The post-surgical blues combined with slow recovery. It's normal. Normal doesn't make it less true. No, but it does mean we can fight it. With therapy, medication if needed, and time. You're not giving up. I won't let you. Sometimes I think you're too stubborn for your own good. And sometimes I think you're too ready to surrender. We balance each other out. He smiled despite himself. What would I do without you? Probably die of stubbornness. It's a miracle you survived this long on your own before we met. Survival isn't the same as living. You taught me the difference. They held hands in the sterile hospital room, two people who'd been through too much but somehow kept finding reasons to keep going. In March, 3 months post-surgery, Ji-sung took his first steps. With a walker, with therapists supporting him on both sides, with every muscle shaking from exertion, but steps nonetheless. 5 steps forward, a pause to rest, 3 steps back. Aaliyah, watching from the doorway, cried. It's not much, Ji-sung said, breathing hard. It's everything, she replied. By April, he was walking 20 feet with the walker. By May, 50 feet. By June, he was transitioning to forearm crutches, faster and more stable than the walker. I may never walk without assistance again, Dr. Han warned during a checkup. The nerve damage was too extensive. But this level of recovery is remarkable. Better than we hoped for. Can I go home? Ji-sung asked. With ongoing outpatient therapy and home modifications for safety, yes. I think you're ready. Going home felt surreal. After 6 months in the hospital, the mansion seemed both familiar and strange. Mrs. Baek had prepared Jia's favorite foods to celebrate. Yoon-hee had flown in from Busan. Even Taiwan seemed emotional, though he'd never admit it. That first night, lying in their own bed instead of a hospital bed, Aaliyah and Ji-sung held each other in the dark. "I wasn't sure we'd get here," he admitted. "When I woke up from surgery and couldn't feel anything, I thought I'd ruined my life trying to fix it. But you didn't. You fought, you healed. You're here. Because of you, you never let me give up. That's what marriage is. Refusing to let your partner give up even when they want to." He kissed her softly. "I love you. Have I mentioned that lately?" "Not in the past hour. I was starting to worry. I love you. I love you. I love you." He punctuated each declaration with a kiss. "There, caught up." She laughed, the sound bright and free in the darkness. They'd survived. Again. Against odds and obstacles and their own worst impulses, they'd survived. Summer brought new challenges. Ji-sung returned to the foundation, working reduced hours but determined to reclaim his role. His mobility was better, but still limited. He used forearm crutches for longer distances, a cane for short ones, and kept a wheelchair available for difficult days. The foundation thrived. Their Southeast Asia expansion was successful. New pharmaceutical equity legislation was pending in 3 countries, and they'd been nominated for an International Humanitarian Award. Jia, now 16, had become a fierce advocate herself. She'd started a student organization focused on medical access, combining her father's passion with her own generation's digital activism. Universities were already reaching out about early admission. Everything should have been perfect. But in August, a journalist named Sarah Kim published an investigative piece titled "The Cost of Redemption: Park Ji-sung's Criminal Past and Nonprofit Present." It was devastating. She'd interviewed families of people Ji-sung had killed, survivors of his criminal activities. There were former associates who questioned whether he'd really changed or just learned to hide better. The article painted him as a con artist who'd weaponized his paralysis for sympathy, who'd built a foundation as a cover for continued criminal activity. None of it was true. All of it was damaging. "She's suggesting I'm laundering money through the foundation," Ji-sung said, reading the article for the 3rd time. "That I'm using our pharmaceutical distribution network to smuggle other goods. That the kidnapping was staged to gain sympathy." "It's garbage," Dr. Chen said. She'd called an emergency meeting of the board, lies and speculation masquerading as journalism. "But it's compelling garbage," Ryu pointed out. He'd been hired as the foundation's security director 2 years ago. "It plays into people's worst suspicions. A criminal doesn't really change. He just gets better at hiding his crimes. We need to respond," Officer Kim suggested. "Not with lawsuits. That looks defensive. But with transparency. Open our books, invite auditors, prove we have nothing to hide." "We already do annual audits," Aaliyah said. "They're public record. Then we need to make them more public. Press conference, media blitz, complete transparency about finances and operations. Take away the mystery so conspiracy theories have nothing to feed on." They planned the response carefully. A press conference where Ji-sung would address each accusation directly. Financial documents released to independent auditors who'd verify the foundation's legitimacy. Testimonials from people they'd helped, from donors, from partner organizations. Yeah, but 2 days before the scheduled press conference, Sarah Kim published a follow-up article. This one included allegations from Min Jae. He'd apparently contacted her from wherever he'd fled, provided detailed accounts of Ji-sung's criminal activities, and most devastatingly, claimed that Ji-sung had paid him to kidnap Jia to generate sympathy and distract from investigations into the foundation's finances. It was a lie, complete fabrication, but it was specific, detailed, and compelling enough that people believed it. The foundation's donation rate dropped 40% overnight. 3 board members resigned. Partner organizations started requesting temporary holds on joint projects pending clarification. "We're being destroyed," Dr. Chen said during an emergency meeting. "Every day this narrative exists unchallenged. Oh, we lose ground. We may never recover. Then we challenge it," Aaliyah said, "with facts, with evidence, with the truth." "The truth is complicated," Ji-sung said quietly. He'd been mostly silent during the meeting, his face drawn with stress. "I did do terrible things. I did kill people. The only part that's a lie is that I haven't changed. But how do you prove change? How do you prove that 15 years of legitimate work outweighs 15 years of crime?" "By continuing to do the work," Aaliyah insisted. "By not giving these people the satisfaction of watching us quit. Maybe we should quit. Maybe the foundation would be better off without me, with new leadership that doesn't carry this baggage." "No," Gia's voice cut through the conversation. She'd been sitting quietly in the corner, but now she stood. You don't get to quit. Not because of lies, not because it's hard, not because people are mean. You taught me that we fight for what's right even when it costs us, especially when it costs us. Everyone turned to look at her. Dad, you did bad things. We all know it. You've never hidden from it. But you've also spent 15 years trying to balance the scales. You've saved thousands of lives through the foundation. You've changed policies that will save millions more. One lying journalist doesn't erase that. Multiple lying journalists don't erase it. She moved to stand beside her father's chair. So we fight back. With truth, with evidence, with the same stubbornness that kept Mom waiting for you during the trial and kept you fighting through recovery. We don't quit. Parks don't quit. Jisung looked at his daughter with something like awe, then at Aaliyah. Then at the assembled group of people who'd stood by him through everything. She's right. We fight. He sat straighter. Dr. Chen, arrange the press conference for tomorrow instead of 2 days from now. We go on offense. Ryu, I need you to track down Minjae. He's spreading lies. We need to confront him with facts. Well, Officer Kim, talk to your contacts in law enforcement. Get official statements about whether there's any investigation into the foundation. Aaliyah, I know. Keep you from doing anything stupid while also being brilliant and beautiful and supportive. Exactly. They worked through the night, preparing statements, gathering evidence, building a case not for innocence. Jisung would never claim that, but for genuine change. The press conference was standing room only. Every major media outlet in Korea was there, plus international press who'd picked up the story. Sarah Kim sat in the front row, notepad ready, expression smug. Jisung stood at the podium, not sitting. He'd insisted on standing, using his canes for support but refusing to hide behind disability. Thank you all for coming. I know many of you are here hoping for scandal, for denials, for some dramatic collapse. I'm going to disappoint you. He gestured to the screen behind him, where financial documents appeared. These are the Med Access Foundation's complete financial records for the past 10 years. Every donation, every expenditure, every program cost. We're releasing them to the public and to independent auditors. We have nothing to hide. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Ms. Kim's articles suggest I've been using the foundation for money laundering or continued criminal activity. If that were true, it would show in these documents. I invite anyone, journalists, investigators, critics, to examine them thoroughly. You won't find anything illegal because nothing illegal is happening. What about Minjae's claims, Sarah Kim called out, that you paid him to kidnap your daughter? Minjae is a man destroyed by grief who spent 10 years planning revenge. When that revenge didn't satisfy him, when he realized that killing me or watching me suffer wouldn't bring back his family, he decided to destroy my reputation instead. I understand his pain. I'm responsible for his pain, but his lies about the foundation are just that, lies. How do we know you're not lying now? Another reporter shouted. You don't. You have to choose what to believe based on evidence and track record. For 10 years, this foundation has operated transparently, saved lives, and changed policies. For 10 years, I've submitted to probation oversight, regular audits, and public scrutiny. I'm not perfect. I'm deeply flawed, but I'm not a liar about this work. Aaliyah watched from the side of the room, her heart pounding. This could go either way, vindication or destruction. Everything they'd built balanced on the edge of public opinion. Then Dr. Chen stepped forward with a stack of papers. I have here 147 letters, she said, from patients who received medication through our programs, from families who can now afford life-saving treatment, from partner organizations in 12 countries, all testifying to the foundation's impact, legitimacy, and importance. She set the stack on the podium. Ms. Kim is welcome to interview every single person. Ask them if they think Park Ji-sung is running a criminal enterprise. Ask them if they'd rather have their loved ones die because one journalist decided to destroy a man's redemption for clicks. The room went silent. Sarah Kim stood. Mr. Park, do you deny that you killed 17 people during your criminal career? No, I don't deny it. I did kill 17 people, either directly or through orders I gave. I live with that guilt every day. Do you deny that contaminated medication you distributed killed 3 children? No, I don't deny that either. Those deaths were my fault, my negligence, my sin. I've tried to atone through the Foundation's work, but I'll never fully make up for those lives. Then how can you claim moral authority to run a health organization? I don't claim moral authority. I claim expertise, experience, and genuine commitment to preventing the kind of system failures that created criminals like me in the first place. The pharmaceutical industry's price gouging and access barriers pushed me into crime. I'm trying to fix those systems so no one else makes that choice. He paused, looking directly at her. Ms. Kim, you've done your job. You've investigated my past, exposed my crimes, questioned my motives. That's legitimate journalism. But now ask yourself, is destroying this foundation good journalism? If we close tomorrow because donors flee, if our programs end, if people lose access to affordable medication, is that justice? Or is it just revenge dressed up as accountability? Sarah Kim didn't answer. The conference continued for another hour. More questions, more challenges, more opportunities for everything to collapse. But by the end, something had shifted. The hostility had softened into skepticism into cautious willingness to examine evidence. 3 days later, the independent auditors released their report. No irregularities found, all expenditures legitimate, foundation operating exactly as claimed. A week after that, Sarah Kim published a follow-up article. It wasn't a retraction exactly, but it acknowledged the auditor's findings and included testimonials from families helped by the foundation. The tone had changed from accusatory to questioning. Can people truly change? When does punishment end and redemption begin? What do we owe to those trying to make amends? It's not perfect, Ji-sung said, reading the article, but it's better than destruction. Better than we deserved, Aaliyah corrected. You stood up there and took responsibility without deflection. That's what changed the narrative. No, what changed it was 10 years of actual work. The accountability just reminded people of that work. Slowly, painfully, the foundation recovered. Some donors returned, new partners emerged, the programs continued. But the experience had taken a toll on Ji-sung. His health deteriorated from stress, more pain, more mobility issues, more exhaustion. By October, he was using the wheelchair full-time again. I'm falling apart, he joked one evening, but Aaliyah heard the fear underneath. You're 57 years old with decades of accumulated trauma. Your body is tired. That's different from falling apart. Feels the same. She helped him into bed, running through the familiar evening routine. Medications, exercises, the careful positioning to prevent pressure sores. Do you ever regret it? He asked quietly. Meeting me? Staying? Building this complicated life instead of finding someone simpler? Every day, she said honestly, then smiled at his stricken expression. I'm joking. No, Ji-sung. I've never regretted us, not once. Not even during the trial or the kidnapping or the surgery or the media attacks. Because yes, it's complicated, but it's also rich, meaningful, full of purpose. We've built something that matters. We built a foundation. We built a family, a life, a partnership that survived everything the universe threw at it. That's more important than any foundation. He pulled her down beside him. I don't know what I did to deserve you. You walked into that hospital room 12 years ago and gave a desperate nurse a chance when you didn't have to. Everything good in our lives came from that moment of kindness. I wasn't being kind. I was being strategic. You were being both. That's who you are. Strategic kindness, calculating compassion. It's what makes you so effective. They fell asleep, holding each other. Two people who'd survived everything and planned to keep surviving whatever came next. 5 years later. Aaliyah stood in the auditorium of Seoul National Hospital, the same hospital where she'd first met Ji-sung 17 years ago, watching her daughter address a crowd of medical students. My father taught me that systems matter more than individual heroics, Jia was saying. She was 21 now, in her 3rd year of medical school, brilliant and fierce, and everything Aaliyah had hoped she'd become. You can save one patient at a time, which is important, or you can change the systems that create patients in the first place. That's how you save thousands. The students applauded. Jia fielded questions about pharmaceutical equity, about the foundation's work, about balancing medical practice with advocacy. Aaliyah felt Ji-sung's hand find hers. He was in his wheelchair today, bad leg day, but alert and present, proud of their daughter. She's incredible, he whispered. She's yours. Of course she's incredible. She's ours. Half you, half me, 100% herself. After the presentation, they met Jia for lunch at a restaurant near the hospital. She was animated, talking about her research project on antibiotic resistance and access in developing countries. I'm thinking about doing my residency with Doctors Without Borders, she said. Use what I've learned from the foundation to work in places with the greatest need. That's dangerous work, Ji-sung said carefully. So is running a criminal pharmaceutical network. I come from a long line of people who do dangerous things for what they believe in, she grinned. Besides, Mom survived 12 years in Seoul starting from nothing. I think I can handle a few years in field medicine. She has a point, Aaliyah admitted. That evening, they attended the foundation's annual gala. It was a massive event now, over 500 people, international attendees. Not recognition from multiple governments for the policy work they'd accomplished. Dr. Chen, now in her 70s and officially retired but still heavily involved, gave a speech about the Foundation's 17-year history, about how a former criminal had built something legitimately good, about how redemption wasn't a moment but a process. Park Ji-sung could have spent his post-prison life in hiding, in shame, in bitterness about what he'd lost. Instead, he built this, she gestured to the crowd, an organization that's provided affordable medication to over 1 million people, that's influenced pharmaceutical policy in 32 countries, that's trained thousands of advocates who will continue this work long after we're gone. That's not redemption, that's transformation. The applause was thunderous. Later, during the quieter part of the evening, Taiwan found Aaliyah on the balcony overlooking the Seoul skyline. "You did good, Mrs. Park," he said, "keeping him alive, keeping him fighting, keeping him honest. None of this happens without you. I just loved him. He did the rest. Love isn't just anything, it's everything, especially the kind that survives what you two survived." Inside, Ji-sung was talking with a group of donors, his wheelchair no barrier to his commanding presence. At 62, he'd finally made peace with his limitations, with his past, with the complicated truth of who he was. Aaliyah watched him. This man who'd saved her from Director Kwan 17 years ago, who'd been saved by her in return, who'd built a life and a family and a legacy from the ruins of his worst choices. He caught her looking and smiled. That same smile from their first dinner together, when they'd been strangers pretending to be professional while falling into something that would define both their lives. She smiled back. And in that moment, standing in a room full of people celebrating the work they'd built together, Aaliyah thought about that terrified nurse pressing elevator buttons while running from harassment, thought about how impossible her current life would have seemed to that woman, thought about every choice she'd made, to stay when staying was dangerous, to love when love was complicated, to fight when fighting seemed futile. All of it had led here, to this moment, to this life, to this beautiful, messy, impossible family. "Thank you," she whispered to that younger version of herself, to the universe that had thrown them together, to every moment of pain and joy and survival that had created this present. Ji-sung wheeled over, taking her hand. "What are you thinking about?" "Everything. How far we've come. How we almost didn't make it a dozen different times, but did anyway. Stubbornness. Love. Same thing for us, I think." They stood together, her standing, him sitting, but equal in every way that mattered, looking out at the city that had been their battlefield and their home. "No regrets?" he asked. "None. You?" "I regret a lot of things. Lives I took, mistakes I made, pain I caused. But us? Never. You're the one thing I got right." She leaned down to kiss him, not caring who saw, not caring about professional image or public perception. Just two people who'd loved each other through impossible odds and planned to keep doing it for whatever time they had left. "Love you, Park Ji-sung." "Love you too, Aaliyah Miller Park." Behind them, the gala continued. The Foundation's work continued. Their daughter's education continued. Life continued, rich and complicated and absolutely worth every struggle. Because sometimes, the best love stories aren't about people who have it easy. They're about people who have it hard, but refuse to quit, who see each other's worst moments and choose each other anyway, who build something beautiful from broken pieces. And 17 years after a nurse kissed the wrong Korean crime boss in a desperate moment, or maybe exactly the right one, Aaliyah and Ji-sung stood together, proof that redemption was possible, transformation was real, and love could survive absolutely anything if both people were stubborn enough to fight for it. The end.